Hi, welcome to Birthing at Home, a podcast. I'm Elsie, your host. I'm a homebirth mum of 2 little boys. I'm a mental health nurse, a homebirth advocate broadly, but also more specifically in the state of Victoria, and I'm an ex-student midwife. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on in Melbourne, Australia. I would also like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have been birthing at home on country for tens of thousands of years prior to the British invasion, and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. This is episode 22, and finally, today, first-time mum Issie from South Australia shares her home birth story of Harper. This is the first episode from a mum in South Australia, and it's a very positive one. Issie herself was born at home in New Zealand, but had never really thought she would have a home birth until listening and reading others' experiences led her on a path towards a beautiful home birth that has had a transformative impact on how she views herself as a woman and a mum. One of my favourite parts of this episode is the realisation of another home birth benefit, that in a home setting you have so many spaces to choose from, whereas other options often force women to be confined to one space. It's pretty amazing. Enjoy. Welcome, Issie, to the Birthing at Home, a podcast.
Thanks, Ozzy.
We were just saying that this has been a long time coming, and you're from South Australia, which is very exciting. I'm ticking off the states. Do you want to give a little overview of who you are? Obviously, you live in South Australia, and anything else about your family?
Yeah, so I am living in South Australia, but I was originally from New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I've been in South Australia for maybe 8 years. I had a beautiful little girl, Harper, this year in April, so she's just gone 7 months. And I live with my partner, Christian, and we also have a mini Dachshund, Rolo, who is my original baby.
Excellent. Yeah, cool. And I guess my first question is, especially coming from New Zealand, which is known for having way better access to home birth than Australia, before having Harper, did you know about home birth?
No, I did know about it, but it wasn't something I'd considered for myself at all. Yeah. And it's kind of funny how it's worked out, because I was actually a home birth. Like, my mom, yeah, had me in New Zealand, and I don't know whether it subconsciously played into it. But yeah, until I actually looked into my options, it wasn't like, I was never like, I want to do a home birth. This is something I'm set on.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question is, how did you choose home birth?
Yeah. Good question. So it's, like, Christian and I had actually just gotten engaged in June last year, and we hadn't actually planned to get pregnant. So when we did get pregnant, I had no idea what our care options were. And just by coincidence, a friend had added me to Adelaide Birth Network on Facebook.
Okay. I
reckon about a year prior. So I think I just kind of been seeing the resources from that pop up, and just been reading some posts. So I just assumed that I would be birthing in a hospital, epidural, the works.
Yeah.
Birth terrified me.
Okay.
Until I started actually educating myself about how powerful our bodies are, and that was all thanks to my midwife. But basically, from Adelaide Birth Network, I figured out that I wanted a private midwife.
Yeah.
Because I just read that's gold standard care. The friend who'd recommended I should join Adelaide Birth Network, she had a home birth as well. So I think it was kind of in the back of my mind, but it wasn't. Something that I thought was for me. The only other thing apart from a private midwife that I knew I wanted was to have a water birth.
Yeah.
So the first person I spoke to was my doula, Sonia Newton. who was just an absolute legend. She had so many conversations with me and my partner just about, so you want to have a home birth? And I was like, what? No, I don't want to have a home birth. She's like, but you want to have a private midwife? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, like they do home birth, like they don't have admitting rights in the hospital. So
yeah. It's basically like an expensive support person. Yeah, an expensive doula.
Yeah. So I spoke to some obstetricians, and I quickly found out that in SA, some of them might let you labour in the water, but they won't let you deliver. So after I'd figured that out, I was kind of just like, okay, I really need to get on board with this whole actually seriously consider this home birth idea.
Yeah.
So it definitely took both of us like a good couple of months to get on board.
Yeah.
We interviewed 3 midwives.
Yeah.
And we ended up settling on my midwife, Lena, who's just amazing. Like, we ended up just having the absolute dream team. So
yeah, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I guess going back a little bit, so you found out you were pregnant and had, so it was kind of a surprise being pregnant with Harper. Yeah. So, like, you find out you're pregnant. Did you go to the GP?
Did I do? Yeah, I did.
I'm just curious, like, this is kind of like my little, I don't know, vendetta or whatever, because it's so often been shared that women, especially first-time mums that don't really know any other option, like the GP is saying, oh, public, private, and they're like, oh, okay, and then they think those are the options, whereas that's not actually the full list of options. So I'm just curious, like, you decided, you kind of figured out you wanted a private midwife simply from being in this network? I think I did go to the GP, and like I had my early dating scan and everything, and was trying to figure out my options from there. But I just had in my head I wanted a private midwife. So I guess I was a little bit more educated on it than I thought I was. Like, I wasn't just public or private. But we were maybe interviewing the midwives when I was trying to get my referrals, and my midwife just said, because they do make it quite challenging to, get the referral. And they were like, you can just say it's for prenatal and postnatal care. Like, you don't need to say specifically that it's for birthing at home. Like, you don't need to include that. And she also said, it can be helpful to get a referral to an OB at the same time, which I did, because I hadn't fully made the decision then. Cool. And what was Christian's take on home birth? He was not keen at all. That's a pretty common theme.
It definitely, we did a lot of work to get him on board. Excellent. So we worked with doctors, and he worked with them. Like, we met through working together. And he worked with doctors for a lot longer than I did, but he was very much just, trust in the doctor and what they say, and that has to be right. Like, I don't think he would ever challenge something that they said. So
wow. And family, friends, I mean, your mom sounds like she was probably on board.
And it's funny because I kind of forgot that I was on there. So when we had locked in our private midwife and had settled on a home birth, I think I was on the phone to Mum and Dad, and Dad was like, oh, we made like this birth mat and all this stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, oh yeah, I can ask you what you needed and what you needed. But they never at any point kind of pushed me in one direction or another. My sister had just given birth 9 months earlier.
Yeah.
When I had Harper. So she birthed in a hospital. And I don't think that she was that happy with her experience there. So I think that she was a little bit scared for me actually doing a home birth.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
because you were born at home. Was she born at home?
She was born in the hospital.
Wow.
And she's older, so I think my mum had that whole, I've had a really traumatic birth in the hospital. I'm never setting foot in there again.
Yeah, wow.
I'm doing a home birth, and then my sister had a similar birth as well. So she's actually pregnant at the moment, and she's looking into a home birth too, so that's really cool.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
that's so fascinating because for so many reasons, but like I guess as a culture, a society, whatever, it wasn't that long ago that we were having more home births, like once upon a time. And I just find that like so interesting that like you are the product of like a successful home birth. Yeah, how interesting. Okay. And what was your pregnancy like with Harper?
My pregnancy was pretty straightforward. Very luckily, I definitely had like a bit of nausea in my first trimester. And I feel like before I got pregnant, everyone was just, in my mind, I was like, when you're pregnant, you have all these like pregnancy cravings, and it wasn't anything like that. It was so many food aversions as opposed to cravings. So I think I lived on like spaghetti on toast for like my whole first trimester. I think it was pretty straightforward, except for we did have a follow-up on our 20-week scan, just because my placenta was a little bit low-lying, and I'd previously had a LETS procedure, so they just thought that my cervix was a bit short, but that all got cleared.
What kind of procedure, sorry?
A LETS procedure. So it's like when they take some cells off your cervix, like precancerous cells.
Yeah.
So it just meant that I didn't have like a full cervix going into pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Did you decline anything in particular, like any test or anything?
Well, yes. I think that we were recommended to go back in third trimester for another scan for just to check that the placenta had moved up.
Yeah.
But we ended up declining that, which my midwife was just like, they'll probably, be like, put more fear into you as opposed and she was pretty confident I hadn't had any bleeding or anything. Yeah. And we also declined the GBS testing.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Yeah, cool. It sounds like your midwife was amazing, as she should be, but also obviously helped you out with like education kind of stuff. Did you do any like other kind of education?
Yes, so I think my midwife, Lena, she gave us like, all the books. She told us about all the podcasts. So she really kind of directed us to the resources, but I just like consumed them. So much education, because I remember meeting and interviewing midwives, and their focus on informed choice was just massive, and it was like pretty daunting to begin with because we didn't know what we wanted. Like we just wanted people to be like, this is what you're going to do. This is what it's going to be like, because, when you go into something and you just have no idea. So I just read like all the books, and I loved the Great Birth Rebellion podcast.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
and we did hypnobirthing. My other backup midwife just recommended some health professionals like osteo and acupuncture and mental health doula and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you say a mental health or did you say mental health or maternal health doula?
Mental health doula.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, she's awesome.
What is can you tell me more about a mental health doula?
Yeah. So I actually saw her. She came and met with Chris and I pretty late in my pregnancy, like pretty late in third trimester. And because a lot of our hypnobirthing was about, like fear release and all that kind of thing. And I'd been seeing like a prenatal psychologist as well, just to kind of, work through some things.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like a session for like parenting values. And I think she also did like some breastfeeding education as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of just to, I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but I want to say that she used to be a postpartum doula or something.
Yeah.
But that's really her focus on mums and
yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And so did she also attend the birth?
No. So I had just like my doula.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my mental health doula attend.
Yeah.
It was just like a one session.
Yeah. That's amazing. So well supported. And you obviously got to meet the second midwife at some point as well. Yeah.
So we lived north, like when we locked in my primary midwife, and then we moved south.
Okay.
So I had quite a bit of interaction with my backup midwife because it was just like, I think they alternated appointments towards the end.
Yeah.
When they got closer together, yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. And you obviously worked whilst you were pregnant?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you work in healthcare, is that right?
We did used to work, it was like the training organisation for GPs.
Oh, cool.
But I didn't work there. I worked in research.
Yeah. Did you get any like weird comments or anything from like colleagues kind of thing about, I mean, I guess it's not like not everyone's asking you, where are you birthing? But
yeah. Oh, it's funny though, because so many people do. Yeah. And I remember, I think one of my colleagues at the time was like, oh no, like you need to like book into the hospital.
Yeah. Wow.
And then I think I had bloods done, and even the person taking my bloods was like, oh, so I'm just sending this to like a midwife. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what hospital are you with? And I was like, I'm not with a hospital. And he's like, I recommend you book in with a hospital like as soon as possible. And I was like, this is none of your business.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I do like the question as like a home birther when they say like, oh, which hospital? And then you're like, I'm not going to hospital.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm not going to be leaving my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And when did you finish work?
I ended up finishing quite early, I think. I reckon like 34 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a good amount of time. Like I feel like I think in my head I was like, I'm going to work out as long as possible. But
yeah.
I think I ended up having just over a month off, and I think I really needed that. Like it was just change your mindset and relax and Yeah.
During that 4-ish weeks, like were you practicing like the hypnobirth stuff? Like what did you get up to?
I actually made myself like a little table of things I needed to do every day.
Excellent. Yeah.
And it was like go for a beach walk, so we live really close to the beach.
Yeah.
And it was like all the spinning baby stretches.
Yeah.
If I had like an osteo acupuncture appointment, drink my raspberry leaf tea.
Yeah. All the things. Yeah.
Yeah, all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. What did you think of like osteo acupuncture? Did you find that it helped with something or?
Yeah, so my midwives actually really pushed chiro, but my second midwife just mentioned this amazing osteo who I still see now.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately not taking new clients, otherwise I would plug it.
Yeah, don't mention it. They'll get so many emails.
Yeah, so that was just kind of like she checked like that I was all aligned. She had done a lot of extra kind of study to do with like women's health, so I saw her postnatally as well.
Yeah.
And she did all of like my pelvic health stuff. And then my acupuncture, I didn't love the person who I had acupuncture through, but I'm 99% sure it's the reason why I went into labour when I did. So
wow.
it definitely worked for me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. In the lead up to, going into labour, did you like have any like signs of labour?
Yes. So I had just kind of like really light period cramps. And I remember being in the car driving somewhere and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm getting my period. And I was like, oh, no, wait, I'm pregnant.
Oh, gosh.
But it was just really like mild.
Yeah.
I didn't get any tummy tightening or anything like that.
Yeah. And like, I guess how did you win Christian over? I never asked that.
Oh, sorry, I'm just knocking everything off.
That's okay.
I actually, I got him reading the books that my midwife had been giving me because I was just like, I think it's easier for you to consume that information and make of it what you will, as opposed to me feeding it to you and then you having to take my word for it. And my midwives were just like amazing. So I'd read all the books and then I'd listen to the podcast and then I'd come to them. Sonia was laughing about it. I was just like come to them with lists at every appointment and be like, what if this happened? And what if this happened? And Christian would come and he'd be like, but what if something bad happens? And just answer all our questions. But I feel like the big turning point for both of us was when we did our hypnobirthing course.
Yeah.
And I think we might have been like 8 couples in it. And we were the only ones doing a home birth. So everyone else was doing a hospital birth.
Yeah.
And just like talking about the birth plans and the potential, intervention, and just knowing that we weren't going to have those fights and not having that stress of, we have to really advocate for ourselves. Yeah. And that was just like a huge turning point. I know for me at least. Yeah. Like I wrote up a birth plan, but I don't even think I ended up printing it out because I just knew that like the care providers I'd chosen were so woman-centered and I just knew I was going to be really well looked after.
Yeah, wow. And so like I guess reading and consuming all of this education and I want to say like wisdom and stuff like that really empowered you to become like confident that your body could actually do this. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think the first book I read was The Birth Space, and it is like my favorite book. It's just got lots of positive birth stories. I'm going to buy it for like all of my pregnant friends because I just love it so much. Yeah. Just like, listening to really positive birth stories, I think that helped the most. Yeah. Do you, like, you don't have to know the answer to this, but do you know like what exactly it was about the positive birth stories that was like, I guess, I'm not really sure like how you could answer this. I'm trying to think as well, like what is it that changes your mind? I guess maybe that whole like, well, if she can do it, I can do it too, maybe. Yeah, and I guess just
just like, I think I read some of Dr. Rachel Reed's books as well.
Yeah.
And just, I think that Lena gave us just some really good books about like the physiology about childbirth and, you know, how naturally everyone used to birth and how big home birth used to be. And then it just became so medicalized. So kind of just learning about the history of it.
Yeah.
And kind of just like restoring faith that your body knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
I think there was a saying that I read, and it was like, you don't need to tell your body to grow your baby's right arm today, you know, like you don't need to tell it how to birth, like your body knows how to birth.
Oh, that's so good. Is that from that birth space book?
I don't know what book it's from, but I just remember reading it and I was like, whenever someone is going to challenge me about the home birth, I'm going to say this to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that because I guess like reading like Rachel Reed and Sarah Wickham and all of the amazing people's resources out there. I guess the birth stories, like the positive physiological, more often home birth stories, like I guess are evidence of that in action because to like read that, okay, you know, you can do it and whatever, but actually then hearing that it actually has worked, I think, that's quite powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then the birth of Harper, I guess. So when did you go into labour then?
I went into labour, I was 39 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you expecting to go like in inverted quotes or whatever, like early or?
I think in my mind I was expecting to go for the long haul, but I was not mentally prepared to go for that. I think that we went on like a little baby moon over Easter and it was just like so amazing, and I was just so focused on being as relaxed as possible. And I think I hit 38 weeks and I was like, okay, this week, you know, we're on. And I was looking at all the statistics of like, what's your chance of going into labour as a first time mum in this week? And then I think I hit 39 weeks and I was like, all right, 43. Yes, that's it. So no, I was not expecting to go into labour at all. And I feel very lucky that I went before my estimated due date because I didn't get any of the harassment.
Yeah, so
you know, no one was messaging me being like, are you still pregnant or anything like that. So yeah. Amazing. I hadn't actually thought about that if you always birth before like this magical date that a lot of people do tell people, then you miss out on all of that harassment, all those text messages like, what are you up to today, like, are you having a baby? Cool. And do you want to tell the story of birth story of Harper then? So I had acupuncture the day before. And I think for about a week I was having like those period cramps, but again, they were just like mild. And in the lead up to it, I think that there was still quite a bit of COVID around. So I was like really paranoid about getting sick because I was just so focused on like, you know, the hypnobirthing and I wanted to be able to make sure I could do like my breathing techniques and stuff. So I wasn't going out that much, but Christian the night before was like, I feel like I'm getting a cold. So I was like, okay, you're going to sleep in the spare room and you're not going to breathe on me. So I woke up around like 6 a.m. on the Friday with cramps. And they weren't that bad. Like it wasn't that intense, but I just kind of woke up with this feeling of like something is happening. And I had really struggled with sleep throughout my pregnancy. Like I was like sleeping sitting up and stuff. Like,
yeah.
It was just terrible.
Was that because you were like so uncomfortable?
I was just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, my hips were sore. I was really congested.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'd adjust my pillows in the middle of the night. Like, I'd go to sleep lying down, and then Christian would wake up and I'd just be like sitting up, and he was like,
yeah,
this is weird. Like,
yeah. When you get desperate times, call for desperate measures.
Until like, 10 o'clock or something. So Christian hears me like pottering around the house at 6 a.m. and he's like, what is going on? So I just got up, like had a shower, washed my hair, and I was meant to see a friend for lunch, and I was like, I don't actually want to go out today. Like, I just want to hibernate. I know that everyone says, carry on with your day, just ignore it. But I was like, no, I just want to get home and I want to like conserve my energy. And I think like my biggest fear around birth was like running out of energy, like, being in labor for 3 days and just being exhausted. So I was like, I just want to hibernate. I called my sister and told her, and she wasn't convinced, but I was like, oh yeah, look, we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
And it ended up just being like the perfect day. Like, I think I had a nap. Me and Christian went out for lunch, and then I already had an appointment booked with my backup midwife for that afternoon. So she was coming anyway. And then my doula ended up just tagging along. She just surprised us. So they came and we told them, like, having some cramps. Do you think like we could be having a baby soon? And they were like, it could still be, it's probably just your cervix getting ready. Like it could still be like a couple of days or even, like a couple more weeks. So that was a little bit disheartening.
Yeah. Well, some women do like have this early labor for weeks. Like, that was my worst fear.
Yeah. And I'd heard about that and I was like, okay, don't get too excited.
Yeah.
But I remember Sonia afterwards saying, look, you came to all your appointments with just those lists of questions and things you want to talk about. And she was like, you didn't have anything. Yeah. It was like, I knew something was happening.
Yeah.
So they left around, I reckon, 4:30. And as soon as they walked out the door, like they were talking about going to other appointments. So I knew that they had other things on. And as soon as they walked out the door, my mucus plug released.
Yeah, wow.
And I thought my waters had broken. And I like went to the bathroom and I was like, oh no, like no, this is my mucus plug. And I like went through to Christian. I was like, you need to finish work now.
Yeah.
Because we like have our mini Dasher and Rolo, and I didn't want him at the birth because he's a very loud boy.
Yeah, okay, I was going to ask that as well. Like, how did Rolo play a part? But
yeah, I wish he could be like a beautiful support animal. Yeah. So the agreement was that we were going to tell Christian's mum that I was in labour because we needed to drop him off.
Yeah.
So anyway, I say to Christian, like, you have to finish up now. And so he's trying to get all of Rolo's things together. And I just go into the living room and I just bouncing on the birth ball for a while and timing my contractions. And then I eventually went through, I was feeling like a bit uncomfortable. So I was like, I'm going to go get in the shower. So I went and got in the shower and I was just like on my hands and knees. And I was like, it's feeling like quite intense. Yeah. And I think I remember timing them and they were like a minute apart or something.
Yeah, wow.
And Christian comes in and he's like, I'm going to go take Rolo now. Because I was like, kept calling for him. I was like, like, where are you? Like, I want you to be here with me.
Yeah.
But he was like madly running around and he's like, I'm going to go take Rolo now. And I was like, no, you need to call your mum. Like, you can't leave now. Like, it's too late.
Yeah.
So he was like, oh, okay. So he calls his mum and his mum's on the way down. She lives about half an hour from us. So I knew that I still kind of had to wait. Like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I can't just have this baby right now.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been in the shower for like 20 minutes. And I said to Christian, I was like, you need to block the pool because I can't get out of the shower like I need to be in the water, because the water was like quite relieving.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to call the midwife now. I'm going to call Lena. And I was like, oh, you know how you just get told it. I think, especially in my head, I was like if you're birthing in a hospital, they're like, oh, you need to wait until you're really in active labour. So in my mind, I was like, oh, it's going to be hours. Like, don't call her yet. And he's like, if you want me to blow up the pool, I'm calling Lena.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I just remember him being on the phone to her, and she was kind of just like, what? Like, Sonia and Nikita just left. Like, they said that you were fine. Like, they were there like an hour ago. She was so confused. Yeah. Because she lives like an hour away from us where we moved to. So she was like, you know, call Sonia. Sonia will come. And so Chris was like, okay, call Sonia. And Nikita ended up coming back because she was closer. So Christian's starting to blow up the pool, and we had the TENS machine. Someone had lent it to us. Yeah. And we hadn't tried it out, stupidly. So I've said to Christian, I'm like, I'm getting out of the shower now. Yeah. Can you get a 10? So he's trying to blow up the pool and do everything out and read the instructions, and he's trying to keep calm. Yeah. He did such a good job. Yeah. So he gets the TENS on, and I remember Sonia coming in, and I'm on my hands and knees on the ground, like just my dressing gown on, like my bum in the air. Yeah. I think we had some pillows down with the TENS on, and I think the hardest part for me was my waters hadn't broken, so I just remember thinking I need to move positions, and keep moving. But every time my contraction ended, I'd try and move, and the pressure from my waters not breaking it just felt like a continuous contraction. Yeah. So I was like really struggling. Yeah. And I was just like doing my hypnobirthing breathing, like really internalizing. Yeah. And then eventually Christian was like, the pool's ready, you can get in. And I think I felt like I kind of had a bit of control from using the TENS machine. Yeah. You know how you push it during contractions. And I was like,
I can boost it.
You boost it. So I eventually got in the pool, and as soon as I got in the pool, the relief was amazing, just because it took all the gravity off. Obviously where my waters hadn't broken. Yeah. So, then I spent obviously a few hours in the pool. Yeah. And my midwives and doula were just in my kitchen, like all the way down the hallway eating dinner. Wow. And it was just Christian and I. And we had, it was in our bedroom, and we had like all our affirmations set up on the wall and like some fairy lights. Yeah. And we just spent like, majority of my labour like that.
And they kind of just like let you do your thing?
Yeah, they weren't even in the room. Like they apparently were walking down the hallway just to listen to see what sounds I was making. But other than that, they weren't in the room. So
amazing.
That was really nice. And Christian had recorded a hypnobirthing track for me.
Oh, cool.
So that was really nice, because he wasn't actually allowed to talk to me or touch me. Yeah. So it was nice to like have his voice in the room. Yeah. With this like hypnobirthing track. And then it must have been when I was transitioning that I was kind of just like, whoa, if I was in hospital now, like I'd have an epidural. I was like, this is a lot. And then I was like, no, you wouldn't. Think about your pelvic floor. Yeah. But I was just like, I rolled over and I said to Christian, I was just like, you need to go ask Lena how much longer this is going to be. Like, I'm tired. Like, this is a lot. Yeah. And then it wasn't long after that I started pushing. Yeah. And then everyone was in the room. Yeah. So I think I was pushing for about an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think I didn't realize it at the time. Like, I remember looking back and being like, oh, I didn't even really need my midwives there. It was just kind of like a sense of security. Like they just left me to it. But thinking back to this moment, because I was pushing for a while and they were like, oh, do you think that you need to just, like, do you need to do a wee or do you need to just like move positions a little bit? Yeah. And I think that Harper had gotten a little bit stuck coming out, because as soon as I was on my hands and knees in the pool and I rolled to the side to see if I needed to do a wee, and as soon as I rolled, my body was just like pushing again.
Yeah, wow.
So she would obviously just gotten a little bit stuck or something and just needed like a little bit of to be maneuvered a little bit. Yeah.
It was all about space and creating space, and pretty much in like almost every episode I've recorded, there has been like some element of like, I mean, there's like birth is like a lot of movement, like even in hospital births, like if you don't have an epidural, you're like trying to move a lot. And I guess that's one of the big problems with epidurals is that you can't move, so you can't create the space. You know, you're not rolling over and lunging and bobbing up and down or whatever else.
Exactly.
It's all about space. I actually I was going to say it when you talked about your osteo, but that you might already have heard it, but the Great Birth Rebellion recently did an episode about osteos and making space and stuff, so that was really good.
My osteo pushed spinning babies a lot. And so we were doing those stretches like every day. To just making sure, you know, you did kind of have that space.
So Harper got in the right space.
Yeah, so she got in the right space. But I think like in the back of my mind, I was constantly like, I need to move around. And I don't think I actually moved around. I don't know. Maybe I did, but I feel like I was in similar positions for my whole labour. So I didn't move as much as I thought I would. I wasn't as active as I thought I would be, which is interesting. Then I birthed ahead like pretty soon after that. And in my birth plan that wasn't printed out, we had discussed that Christian was going to catch her. But because I was on my hands and knees, like he was behind me, my midwife was also behind me, they weren't in the pool. But I said, and we were saying, I was like, oh, look, like her head is out, like, Christian, are you going to catch her? And Lena, he's in the pictures, he's like got his hands in the pool, like really so keen.
So sweet.
But Lena was like, look, like you're not in the position where he can do that, so like you're gonna have to do it.
Because like so you're on your hands and knees, and then if baby comes out, she's gonna be like at the back, and then if Christian like catches, then you're gonna get really tangled up.
All tangled up. So with my neck surge, she comes out, and in the birth video I can just you can see me just being like, oh, and then being like, oh my God, where is she? And just scooping her up. And so she was born at 11 o'clock that night.
Wow. Do you have like any more, I guess, explanation to share about, you know, those last, I guess, moments before she was born, like in terms of like how you like felt the sensations or pain or contractions or however you want to call them? Like how would you say you experienced all of that in those last moments?
See, I feel like labour itself for me wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be. Look, it could be the oxytocin.
But I mean, that's why it's there. That's why it's all there. Like it's,
And I remember talking to my sister that day and her being like, I don't think it's going to be as painful as you think it's going to be. Like she was like, it's actually quite manageable. But for me, the hardest part was the pushing, and I think that I just reached the point where I was like, I'm done, I need this baby out. And I remember when she was being born, just saying to my midwife, like, this really hurts, like, ow. And she was like, yeah, like, just embrace the stretch. And I think that was probably the most important thing that she said. She was like, just embrace the stretch. And at one point she said to me, you know, like, if you can use your hand, because she didn't check me at all. I think she just used the Doppler maybe once before I transitioned.
Yeah, cool.
But she said, like, you can use your hand and just see if you can feel her head. And at that point I was like, I'm not moving. So I didn't. But I then read a post recently, and it was saying something about if you do feel the head before it's born, it can not delay the birth, but it kind of gives your body more time to, like, open up.
Okay,
if that makes sense. Like, they might come down and go back up a few more times, or something like that. I don't know how accurate that is, but I was like, I wonder if that's also why she said it. But yeah, I think, I don't know if there's anything else that
maybe it's as simple as that. And so you find her, I presume, like, did somebody like push her through your legs or something?
I don't know if Lena tapped her through. But,
you caught her.
Yeah, I caught her. And then, we just sat in the pool. I don't even know how long. Yeah.
And so it was your doula, the two midwives, and Christian. Yeah. And I'm presuming your mum appeared at some point to get Rollo.
So my mum and dad actually live in WA.
Oh, okay,
So they weren't here, but yes, so Christian's mum did come, and I just remember, I think it might have been like 6 o'clock, and I was like on the ground on my hands and knees in our bedroom, and I remember Sonia sitting with her back to my bedroom door, and then I think my second midwife, Nikita, carried Rollo out, so just like no one could come in, no one could interrupt my space.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like, I mean, I was going to say the team was amazing, which they clearly were, but like, how awesome of you to have organised that team. Like, that's incredible. You don't hear that many first-time mum home birth stories as positive, I was going to say, or like without like such, because there can still be interventions of sorts at home, but that's amazing. And so how long did you stay in the water for, roughly?
I reckon maybe we transitioned from the pool to our bed, and that's where I birthed the placenta, and that was like, I think I birthed the placenta at about the hour mark. So maybe half an hour or 40 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. And that was just like pure oxytocin, chilling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was amazing. And the only thing that I changed on the day to like my birth plan was I planned to birth out in like our second living area.
Okay.
And the morning that I woke up, I was like, I had all my affirmations up on the wall, like I had it all set up, and I got up and I was like, no, I'm moving to the bedroom. And I set it all up in there, and it was just the perfect space.
Oh my gosh. Imagine if you went into like the labour ward or whatever, or hospital, and were like, nope, I don't like that room, I'm going to move. Like, you couldn't do that. That's awesome.
It's so funny because I was having nightmares about, because I think my second biggest fear was like going to over 43 weeks and then not being able to have my home birth.
Yeah.
And I was having nightmares about having to birth in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, I just really want to have my home birth.
Yeah.
And like, not we put so much effort into it.
Yeah, of course. I think, my first pregnancy was 41 plus 5, and certainly that was like one of my biggest fears. I was like, that was probably the biggest fear I had was I do not want to go to hospital, and I think that's completely a normal thing to be having nightmares. Like if you've got like, that sucks though, but if you've got like this whole plan of home birth, then it's quite different. Amazing. So that's the birth of Harper.
Yeah.
Wow.
I honestly couldn't have expected it to go on any better. Like having a full night's sleep, having a nap, having a great lunchtime meal.
Yeah.
And I said to my doula afterwards, I was like, I'm concerned about my second birth if we choose to have another child. Like it not going as well. And she's like, no, it's going to go just as well. It's just going to be quicker.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, because you've set the bar so high.
I know, but
that's
we
so
just
cool.
had the absolute dream team.
Yeah. And
so experienced.
do you think, how has your postpartum been, having, had this amazing experience? Yeah,
it's been, look, I think having a baby is very challenging.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
We did have like a bit of a rough breastfeeding journey.
Yeah.
But Christian had, I think, 4 weeks off, and that was just amazing. Like that was just our bubble, and just so many newborn snuggles. I just, didn't leave the armchair, and he just fed me and made sure I was watered. It was lovely.
And what did Rolo think of the new sibling?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of jealousy going on. So he stayed with Christian's mum for 2 weeks just because we wanted to be able to have things figured out a bit more and not neglect him and make sure he still had attention. So he's definitely gotten used to her. When he first met her, he kind of came in and was like, what is this thing? Side-eyed her. But now that we're on solids, he's like, oh yeah, she's my friend. She feeds me. She throws things on the ground. So. Yeah.
And I guess, it's probably safe to say that if you have another child, you'll have another home birth.
I think so. Yeah. Definitely. There's no question about it.
Yeah. And has this experience changed how you thought about yourself? I guess from what it sounds like is, you kind of empowered yourself the entire way through your pregnancy, but on a whole, do you feel like it's strengthened you as a woman, as a mom? Do you have any words about that?
Definitely. I just have so much more respect for my body now. I feel like as, a young girl, you're brought up to kind of critique yourself. Yeah. And up until this point, I just knowing what my body did, grew this tiny human and birthed her. And it was just the most empowering moment of my life. And it's actually quite triggering for me now to hear a lot of negative birth stories, because I'm this shouldn't be the norm, because I was so afraid of it, and it's hard to hear really medicalized birth stories now. I have the exact same experience, which is kind of some of the inspo for this entire podcast is to, get out home birth stories, number one, but also get out positive home birth stories. To spread the word of how amazing it can be. And you can choose which room in your house you give birth in. Exactly.
You can't do that anywhere else.
You can have snacks if you want, whatever.
Whatever your heart desires. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story, Issie.
No, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for creating this podcast. I think it's definitely needed.
Yeah, of course.